Good evening, everyone. Our dramatic entrance yet again. Welcome to episode number 37 of Restitching the Tapestry. I know, impressive, right? Episode 37. We are getting close to 40 and we're inching closer to 50, which is going to be super exciting. We are going to definitely have to do something elaborate for episode 50. Not that we don't always do elaborate things, but we need to do something extravagant, if that makes sense. Um, so, but today's episode, we're going to be talking about scientific innovation. We've been really wanting to talk about this for a while. But before we get to talking about scientific innovation, I'm, of course, going to read our show's mission statement. Then we're going to do a couple of introductions to see how both of us have been doing. The usual, right? So, many witness different atrocities, large or small, that fray the social fabric around us, and much of the time, many may feel powerless and know not how to address such things. So, this fray has gotten worse with the rise of social media because we're able to share in this collective trauma as it takes place in real time. And we're basically being exposed to these things that affected different social groups on a mass scale. So we are able to experience this collective grief and outrage together in a way. And in creating this show, our big question was what can we do to mend the communities, or at least try to mend the communities that have seen considerable tragedy? And there was fly in my glasses. That was weird. Um, so, so our big question was, what can we do to mend those communities that have seen considerable tragedy? And our goal with this show is to restitch that tapestry by creating awareness through conversation, creativity, action, and education. So we're really excited to talk about this for this show. That fruit fly threw me off, as you can tell. It landed on my glasses, and I was just like, what's happening right now? Am I seeing spots in my vision? Wouldn't be the
Oh,
first time.
oh
Such a first world problem, right? Okay.
no.
So, Ari, how have you been?
Good. I went to the dentist. As you can see, my teeth are sparkling,
I think they're always sparkling to me.
but they are extra ding today.
They're extra sparkly. I love it. I mean, I hate going to the dentist, but I do. Like, obviously, you got to do what you got to do, right? So
And I finally hung up my laundry.
that is awesome. I have not done that yet. I did laundry a week ago, and it's laying on my floor.
So, yeah, good things today.
That well, I just basically overviewed my week as well. I didn't do laundry. I thought that I was having some vision problems for a second, and school has been, well, school, let's just say. I'm really excited. After next week, it'll be summer break for me. I'm going to be teaching one class online still, but I'm going to be doing some writing. I'm going to be working on my book, which I'm super excited about. A couple of things about creative writing related things before we get to talking as well. I am doing a reading on April 30th on my Donny Speaks channel. It's called Celebrating Arbor Day. And I'm going to be reading selections from my book, Carbon Footprint, to celebrate Arbor Day, which is pretty self explanatory, right? So
Hmm.
if you have not gotten a copy of my book yet, you can find it on Amazon. All proceeds made from purchases of my book are going to be donated to the Arbor Day Foundation, which is a tree/forest conservation nonprofit. So everybody knows that I'm a huge tree hugger, so I'm trying to do something that actually contributes to trees for a change. So hopefully, like even if a lot of people don't buy the book, I'm still going to make a donation because I've just set my mind to it. So, but I'm really excited about that. Ari, have you been working on anything creative lately?
I have been writing lately again, here and there, just slightly. I've been journaling again. I stopped journaling, but I picked it up again. Doing my artist pages. I think that like I fell off and I've been needing to like heal from something. So I've been needing to like come back again. So I'm coming back. I just and just need to like keep going.
I'm glad. I'm glad that you're coming back and you're feeling a little bit better. P.S. What is your drink of choice this evening?
Again, it is the Gateau Noir uh, rosé. I'm still working on that same bottle that I had from last week.
I'm still working on my same box of Pacific fruit wine hard seltzers. So, okay, so before we get moving forward, let's see who's tuning in tonight. Arpy's here, Leo's here, Shayna's here, Rogue Agent Killer Rodan is here. It's good to see all of you. Leo asks, are you going to be able to watch that video from Lindsay Ellis anytime soon? That's the long video, right? Probably not until the end of next week when all of the grading stuff is out of the way, because right now I'm just finding a difficult time sitting in my own thoughts and doing anything other than grading, which is, well, it is the process of the end of the semester. Rogue Agent has been meaning to draw but can't yet. I hope that you get a chance to soon.
Oh no.
I know. Artist's block is not fun.
No, yeah.
It's not. So, okay. So let's talk about scientific well, actually, no, we had one other thing we were going to talk about. Pause for dramatic effect. Um, we wanted to talk a little bit about some YouTube stuff that's been happening.
So much drama.
Always so much drama, right? So Ari, I will let you lead the way on that because you're way more familiar with the situation
Okay,
than me.
so does anybody know who Gabby Hanna is? Gabby Hanna is a YouTube artist. She is a singer-songwriter who puts out poetry books. She put out Adulthood that was on the New York Times bestseller. And then she put out Dandelion, which she sent to YouTuber Rachel Oates to get reviewed. Rachel Oates has put out several reviews of Gabby Hanna and put out several videos about Gabby Hanna, about 8 over the past few years. Anyway, so they've been negative for the most part, just very objective views. They've been critical of her, but they've been critical of her work.
Hmm.
Uh, just giving her opinion, which she's entitled to.
Oh yeah.
Uh, so it's been kind of building up to this. The last video she talked about her was last November. I and she didn't really make anything out since then. But some of it seemed maybe that she might have taken it personally because she made a video where and she did something that Gabby might have taken it personally, like she made a book where she had her dog pick out poetry words and parodied her and said, "My dog makes better poetry than Gabby Hanna,"
Ooh.
and sold the book. So it's a little bit mean spirited, but not, I mean, it's a parody. People do parodies all the time. If you're a person who's a celebrity, you kind of have to like, pick your battles. But so Gabby Hanna, fast forward to now, has music coming out, and so she has like infinite number of times as many followers, and people significantly like her stuff. She's a New York Times bestseller, so she has people buying her stuff. So she has the followers. Rachel Oates only has like 250,000 YouTube subscribers. Like she's not as big as Gabby Hanna by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. Like
Right.
she isn't as big by any means. And but she says that but Gabby Hanna says that she doesn't have like any she doesn't get as many follows because she doesn't talk about her. She referenced a makeup with like a get ready with me where she only gets 4,000 views, but that's just because of the algorithm, you know what I mean? Like
Oh
if you
yeah.
don't if you don't if you don't talk about one thing or another, you're not going to get as many views because you're splitting your channel, whatever.
Mhm.
That's just how YouTube works. But I digress. Um, but Gabby doesn't understand that, maybe. But anyway, so Gabby's like attacking her and she's like calling her a monster and a bitch and all of these other things. And so it's just a lot of drama. It's a lot of whatever. But the only reason why I bring it up is because she reviewed her poetry books and um, she is mad because she reviewed her poetry books and is she's mad about that for some reason that she's reviewed her poetry books and that she didn't like them and that she has like somehow attacked her over time and that she is like seen as manipulative and seen as like mean spirited and seen as like kind of like viciously attacking her. And most of it is just regular critique. And so
Hmm.
it's like as an author, it's like you kind of have to just expect that somebody's going to critique your work, you know?
Well, especially if you choose to send that work to this person, like in the back of your mind, you have to consider, well, this person might not like my work, so you're still taking a risk by sending it to reviewers, right? So, like, I don't know. Like, I understand that maybe Hannah felt like she was being targeted in some way by this person doing multiple videos, but the truth is, if you're going to be having a New York Times bestseller, which is a pretty significant feat for a collection of poems, you are going to probably expect that not everyone is going to be a huge fan of it
Hmm.
because it's getting more widely exposed to diverse groups of people. Yeah. And I've like it's interesting that you mentioned this because I've thought about this a lot too. Like what if somebody doesn't like my work, right? Like how would I react? And of course, I've dealt with a lot of rejection over my work and I have had some criticism of my work in the past and when I started writing it was difficult and if I'm having like maybe a bad mental health day it might be difficult, but I can't imagine ever retaliating against somebody and calling
And
somebody heinous things.
and that's what Gabby Hanna is that she struggles with mental illness. So
Mhm.
is this just her struggling with mental illness and having a hard time dealing with her own inner demons like publicly? And that's the problem is that she needs to deal with this personally and not deal with it publicly. But then does it make it so that she isn't allowed to be in the public sphere having this conversation where she's not allowed to be in public forums talking about her problems? um, so it's like, do we just omit her from the conversation completely because she can't have like a reasonable conversation? And then that brings up a whole slew of problems, like a whole slew of questions. So like it's
Mm.
just like
Well, yeah, like it would seem exclusionary, and
yeah.
yeah, and that like to me, there's a whole nother degree of social unacceptability with regard to that. Now, like I understand that parodies are a thing, satire in general is a thing, and I do love them myself, but I think when somebody is parodying something else, there is a specific way of going about doing it. Like this other person could make a book that parodies Hannah's book, but I don't really think they needed to make the statement of my dog writes better than this poet. Like that to me that seems too far. Like there seems to be a little bit of malicious intent behind making a statement like that. Um but I also think that
Yeah, I felt it was a little far too. Like that was a little much. Like, did you really need to make a book like that that said that? Like,
right.
I didn't understand why that needed to be made, but you know, to each their own.
Yeah, I don't know. But then again, like, of course, I'm sure a lot of views are coming for both people due to the situation. So, oh, YouTube. It never gets boring, does it?
No, it's a drama minefield.
It is. It is. That this situation that we just talked about barely scratches the surface. We could have whole conversations about the beauty community. We could have conversations about the LGBTQ plus community at times on YouTube because there are certain groups and individuals on YouTube who are very toxic, but I digress. That would be a whole nother series of shows, basically. So,
Yeah.
are we ready to talk about scientific innovation, my friend?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so we really wanted to prioritize talking about scientific innovation because I mean, when you think about the fact that we're still in a pandemic and we reflect on what's been happening over the past year, it's taken a lot of scientific innovation, especially to, well, quote unquote, adapt to the current situation that we're in, or to at least find some sort of forward momentum in the current situation that we're in. So, we're going to be touching on that a little bit with regard to scientific innovation, and we're going to be um, talking a little bit about like some other aspects of scientific innovation. So, Ari, before I let you take this away and start with the first few examples of scientific innovation that we've seen recently, um, what how would you define scientific innovation?
So it's kind of like multifaceted. I would define it as anything in the field of like uh, science, uh, not just science, but like medical, uh, um,
Environmental,
environmental, uh, um,
space
uh,
related.
space space related. Yeah, that betters humanity. Just just inventions in general that are set to better humanity. But
Yeah.
medical is a big one. Science, space is a big one.
Well, especially right now, medical is a huge one, of course, due to the pandemic. So, Ari, do you want to talk about the first scientific innovation that you found really interesting in your research?
This came up recently for me, and it was an article about a high schooler that made color changing sutures. So like you uh uh tie up
Like a
a
wound or
wound,
something?
yeah, and it detects infections. So it changes color if the wound gets infected.
That's so interesting. Oh my good. I think I've
Yeah.
heard of that before.
So I thought that that was interesting because it's like it would be good for like if you're in a place that like on if you're a war zone doctor or out in like the field or if you're out in like a place that doesn't have um that can't that you're cleaning it and it detects it before you have a chance to get it looked at by a doctor regularly.
Right. So at least there might be opportunity to potentially aid in fixing the problem before it becomes a severe problem, right?
Right.
I think it's super interesting that a high schooler essentially invented this.
Yeah.
Well, and see this, it kind of circulates back to the significance of ingenuity, especially when it comes to kids. Like, this is why kids need sciences and the arts and stuff like that, because that exposes them to these different scenarios and situations where they themselves can grow and potentially help discover something or create something that is significant, that is going to be very beneficial.
It's true. It seems like it was like one of those like high school science projects, and it's like they made it like, oh, I'm gonna make a suture that detects infections, and I'm gonna sell it to a big medical company, and they're gonna like, oh, I'm making business for myself.
Right.
Like, oh, cool.
So,
Her name is Deja Taylor.
yes. Okay, that name sounds familiar to me. Yep.
She did it as one of the 40 finalists in the Regeneron Science Talent Search.
Mm, that's so interesting. Phew! Excuse me.
Oh, I'm looking at pictures of it. It looks really cool. It turns from like red to like purplish.
Mm,
It fades to light gray.
that's so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Thinking of other children who have contributed to scientific innovation, I would argue that Greta Thunberg, who is the environmental activist, I would argue that she has contributed to scientific innovation due to her willingness to speak out about climate change.
Mhm.
And and it's interesting because a lot of people, like, it seems like mainstream media and a lot of people don't really pay attention to important issues until a very unique voice comes into the conversation and starts kind of, let's just say, rattling the cage that
Yeah.
we kind of place around those topics, right?
Hmm.
And the moment she started speaking out a little bit more, especially speaking out against our former president, it became very apparent that people were listening, especially the scientific community. They were listening. And the truth is, in many ways, it's difficult to achieve scientific innovation if you don't have other people acting in solidarity behind science, right? So, like, I think her voice helped kind of create a little bit more solidarity in
Well,
certain.
I think that the scientists already knew. I think it was getting ordinary people to listen, trying to get average people to listen
Good
to
point.
scientists. And she was working with climate scientists to get the science correct on her speeches. But she was repeating herself over and over. I read a book of her speeches, and she
Mhm.
was repeating herself over and over again, trying to get people to listen to her and listen to climate scientists.
Right,
Um, and she was very animated in her speeches about what was wrong and what needed to be done.
right. Yeah.
But did it have an effect? I don't know because we still haven't, you know, have we seen President Biden do anything with the Green New Deal?
No, but I'm fairly sure we just rejoined the Paris Climate Accords, which is a pretty significant step. At least
It's
I
a
think
small step.
it is a small step. Um, I haven't heard anything about the Green New Deal yet, but I do know that he is also introducing a bill that is supposed to aid in, like, infrastructure and, like, clean energy, so I don't know if that might transition into his version of the Green New Deal or not. Um, I see baby steps happening, so I'm glad that I'm seeing baby steps because truthfully, when this political transition happened, I fully did not expect leaps and bounds right off the bat due to the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I know they have to prioritize certain things too. But I hope that now that things are getting better, sort of, depending on where you are, um, I hope that we start seeing more priority placed on climate change and in the environment as a whole.
Yeah,
100% because it needs to happen.
agreed.
Yep. So what other innovations?
Um, so COVID research, just the fact that we have COVID testing done was a huge deal. Um, that was like a huge thing. Just getting COVID testing done around the United States, um, and getting the vaccine out in what was it, like 9 months?
Oh yeah. And in the last couple of months, it's been like significantly expedited and increased.
Hmm.
Like it's looking back at the beginning of the pandemic, like obviously at the beginning of the pandemic, like they were struggling with even knowing how to properly test for COVID-19, right?
Right.
So like because I remember like last March and early April, they had these different types of tests that they were looking at, like the effectiveness, and then they quickly determined that some of them were more effective than the others. Some of them became quicker response tests because I remember the first batch of tests I think didn't it take like several days to get results?
Hmm.
And then they reduced and they got other tests that only took like 3 days, and then and they have other rapid tests that don't take long at all, right? So like, I think that is a very significant scientific innovation because most like in the past, when it came to my understanding, keep in mind I'm not in the medical field, but according to some of the research that I've done, like a lot of different testing procedures often take years to assess, to to test, in laboratory conditions, so on and so forth. So, like, I think that the pressure of everything really kind of, I don't want to say forced, but coaxed us to think innovatively to circumvent like the time crunch of how threatening and virulent COVID-19 has been.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Congratulations on getting your Moderna vaccine, Leo.
Yes, congratulations.
Not that it's like a congratulations thing. It's just like you're one of the next people, but it's just like,
I feel like
yay.
I feel like congratulatory reactions to vaccinations are a good thing because there are still a lot of people who are very skeptical. Oh, Rogue Agent got his vaccine as well. I You've gotten both of them, Ari, right?
I'm double vaccinated, baby.
Woo! I am not getting my second one until May 4th.
So far away.
I know. I just want to get it over with. So, speaking of vaccines, I feel like that's a pretty significant innovation to touch on as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So Trump basically like sped up research as quickly as he could. Like he was like, we gotta we gotta wrap this up. We gotta like push this along, and scientists were like pushing themselves as hard as they could to get research on this is done as fast as possible. And the just the sheer amount of time and effort and energy, the sleepless nights, the the amount of just willpower that went into getting the vaccine out is just completely unheard of.
Hmm.
The the ability, the just the fact that they came together, worked together to get it done is just totally unheard of in our modern age.
And it was largely a global effort too. Like
Hmm.
like like it's like I mean there's been global collaboration many times in the past, but in a lot of instances global collaboration was done in like different contexts. Like this is something where the entire globe has been affected on a mass scale, right? So the pressure was high and is continuing to be high for all of us. We're all in this together, right? So like I thought that it was pretty like I mean I'm sad that it's happening, but it's really empowering to see that level of solidarity occurring, especially in the scientific and medical communities for sure.
Hmm. It was just like, holy crap, all of a sudden I mean, like, because you think of like the 1912, what was it? Spanish flu?
Yeah.
That lasted 5 years, and it took them so long to develop a vaccine and to kind of work itself out. And they were still, it still kind of went on for several years after that. Like, it took a long time.
Hmm.
So for us to do it within a year is just gotta go.
Yeah, it's like astronomically interesting. Hi, Kevin. Welcome to our show. So Leo, you're getting your vaccine on the second one on the 12th. So you're getting yours a few days after mine. I keep hearing that Moderna, which is the one that I got, is considering doing like a booster shot at some point later in the year due to like the different variations of COVID that have been occurring as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yay, another one. Woo. But like kind of thinking again about the vaccinations, like most vaccines, from my observation, take years to create, sometimes decades. So the fact that they were able to do something like this in the span of a few months is mind-boggling. And I know that is part of the reason why there are so many people who are apprehensive about the vaccine as well, because like it kind of calls into question of like is this properly studied and reviewed and tested, so on and so forth.
and
But
like, what are the long-term effects of this? And like because of the Johnson and Johnson, like, oh, there are women who had blood clots. Like, is there anything that's going to happen long term? And like, blah blah blah. What about my fertility? And conspiracy
oh
theorists
yeah,
of
conspiracy theory galore, essentially.
but I think that there are some legitimate concerns
Oh
about
yeah,
the vaccine, like what could happen to me. There was some problems with AstraZeneca, and there were some problems with Johnson and Johnson. I think the risk is fairly low with the vaccine, and Moderna seems to be fairly stable. I think that Pfizer seems to be fairly stable.
right.
Um,
I mean, I
but
know people are having side effects to it, but that's actually really common with vaccines too.
and it's more common in women than it is men.
Hmm.
And it appears to be with the second shot more than the first shot, and um, yeah, things like that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there are significant concerns that do warrant, investigation, but there's also like there's a fine line between a legitimate concern and spiraling into la la land, where oh no, I'm being injected with 5G and I'm going to turn into a cell tower,
Yeah,
which I have literally seen people say. So,
really?
yes,
Were they serious?
they seem to be.
What?
There's a couple of people that I know who are like, super duper conspiracy theorists that
Like
are like,
QAnon?
I would say teetering on that, yeah. One of the people I actually do not associate with anymore. But I was just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna turn into reptiloids, I guess." Oh.
We're just reptile people.
One step closer to my dream of being Godzilla, I guess.
It's fine. Just rub a magnet on your. I saw a TikTok. There was a TikToker who was doing conspiracy theory posts about the vaccine, and he says the vaccine doesn't put the chip in your arm; it actually removes it.
Lord. Oh my goodness. Just humans. Humans. So, what other innovations are interesting that we should talk about?
Oh, let me look. I have so many. Oh, SpaceX. SpaceX did a they did their first private launch with NASA astronauts. So a commercial entity delivering NASA astronauts to a space lab floating.
Yeah, and aren't they doing their second flight?
Yeah, I think so.
And I've heard that it's also like a recycled space capsule too. So it's
Yeah,
like eco-friendly, like amazing. So the nice thing about that, and
as much
I
as I
would
hate Elon Musk.
right. He does, I guess, some nice things, right? Um, I just wish he said nice things, but that's besides the point. Um,
He's just an e-girl.
all right, I love you. So that got me. So what was I saying? Oh, okay. So I was watching the news today and they were talking about it. And like a lot of the problem with scientific innovation is that it can be often very costly, especially like space exploration and investigation. So,
Mhm.
like this new SpaceX recyclable space technology slash capsule, I don't know the specific terminology, has significantly reduced costs, which means of more space travel, more scientific advancement in that area, which I think is which is really significant, like really important. So, um, that's super good. I'm glad that we're doing more space stuff
Right. And
because
then they launched that rover Perseverance,
yes to Mars to explore the surface of Mars.
and it was launched with plutonium,
Mhm. And now
which
we're able to get like live video footage and images from Mars, which is super cool.
which is mind blowing that we can get live feed from Mars.
Mhm. And it's also mind blowing that on Earth, like they can communicate with this machine all that distance,
Hmm.
and have an exchange and communication, right? You know, I'm
Yeah.
still blown away that we're still getting signal from Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 from the mid to late 80s. Have you
Yeah.
heard about that? Like that was
No.
that was like early last year. They just discovered that both Voyager crafts are now outside of the solar system into non-stellar controlled space, which is super cool, and we're still getting signal and we're still learning about interstellar space.
That's amazing.
Hmm. So it proves that like innovations that might seem older, right, can still have a lot of significant relevance. Leo
So
asks,
amazing.
is Perseverance actually live or is it delayed? I think there is some sort of delay. I do remember them mentioning delay, but even with it delayed, it's more live than it would have been before, probably.
I think it's like 8 minutes
Hmm.
from, but it's not very much time.
No. Oh, let's see. Okay, we did talk about Perseverance already. What about the My Sight one? Do you want to talk about that, Ari?
Oh yeah, there were contacts that slow myopia in kids. So um, basically, this is contacts that you put in, and they slow the pace of myopia from ages 8 to 12.
That's so cool. And myopia is essentially, isn't it nearsightedness?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
commercial product, so I don't know how like it's like you have to like basically like seek it out, but like it was like basically a new kind of contact that helped slow nearsightedness, and it made it so that it basically made it so that myopia didn't get worse.
Hmm. That's so interesting. Where was this when I was a kid? Because my nearsightedness is dreadful now. So the next one that we found, well, that you found, was a fast acting insulin.
Yeah, it was this is another kind of commercial product. It was so it was an insulin injector that you put in, and uh it helps insulin uptake by in little as 13 minutes. So if you need to like have your insulin uptake faster, if you have a hard time with like your insulin, and you need it to like your sugar to uptake faster after you eat.
It almost sounds
Um,
like an EpiPen for insulin.
no, because maybe yeah, kind of.
A fast
It
injection that it acts quickly.
yeah, kind of.
And it sounds like it's portable, right?
Yeah, because well, it's a drug. Well, yeah, because it's a pen, so it's a quick pen. So I guess it is kind of like an EpiPen because it takes half the time.
Wow, that's so interesting.
I
Mm.
thought that was interesting, but the problem is like it's so hard to get your insulin anyway in this country, and like the medical industrial complex makes it so that insulin's so expensive. So why would they make why would they make it insulin like you can do it in half the time if like it's so hard to get regular insulin? So I was just like, this is like kind of like kind of like spitting in the face of people who like I have a hard time getting my insulin. Why would you make an insulin um that, is like half the time because you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. It's okay, Shayna. We love you too. Thank you for tuning in for a while tonight.
Have a fun dinner.
But like you do make a very interesting point because I mean, if we do look at the medical industrial complex, like a lot of medications like that often get inflated deliberately, right?
Mhm.
So when we think of the unique aspect of this specific device, delivering it more quickly, it acting more quickly, that gives like what, two more reasons for the medical industrial complex to inflate the price more. And so like even though this is a really cool innovation, like it kind of begs the question of like who would have access to something like this, right? It probably
And
wouldn't be.
it's like people with like really good insurance who have money, so rich people, and like, but like, not many people would have access to this. It's like only, only, only people who have like either really good insurance or people who have like the ability to like access it. But like, not everybody would have the ability to access it, and it would only be like very limited to a small number of people. And it's like, so it's just it kind of it makes me happy that they came up with something like this because it seems like it would be really helpful to people, but also at the same time it makes me really mad because it's like so many people have a hard time getting regular insulin. So it's like it kind of made me mad because it was like get people regular insulin before you make a fast acting insulin.
Yeah. And unfortunately, though, I know this is the case with a lot of different innovations, though.
Mhm,
Innovations are the promise of something new and exciting, so the demand for it is going to mean that its accessibility is very limited or costly,
mhm,
especially when it comes to the medical field. So,
right.
so speaking of the medical field, another innovation that I like, because I every evening while I'm unwinding and done grading for a while, I'll watch the news. Tonight, they announced that I can't remember who it is. I think it's a country in Europe. They are working on like a type of a preventative medication for Alzheimer's dementia that has proven effective in reversing it in mice so far, which
Mhm.
seems to be pretty promising.
Wow.
And apparently, according to that report, like the aspects of the mice that were stimulated or regenerated or whatever word you want to call it by this therapy or medication is also one that is shared by humans too. So I mean, that seems pretty significant, especially considering how threatening and common Alzheimer's and dementia have been
Mhm.
and continue to be for a lot of people. Leo, you ask a phenomenal question. How can we properly balance the demand and easy access for economically challenged people, but also give the makers rightful monetary gain? Someone has the right to make money in the end, and that's true. I think, I mean, we could do an entirely different episode on because we've talked about the military industrial complex. We've talked about academia as a complex. We could talk about the medical industrial complex at some point. And I think we could definitely explore that in an episode like that.
Mhm.
Um, at least I don't think we've talked about that yet at length, but
We haven't.
that would episode ideas. Um, but like I think that there needs to be some sort of reputable third party that in some way holds both accountable, and right now, like I mean, I wouldn't even really argue that the government is that third party necessarily because it's very fragmented and disjointed, and it's not like there's like this debate of like, should there be involvement or should there not be involvement, right? So, and that is a very valid debate. People have a lot of concerns about that, and those concerns are valid too. So, I think that would be something that we could research and answer more if in another episode that we do about that topic for sure.
Mhm.
Don't worry, Leo, we will definitely credit you for coming up with the idea for that episode. Oh, so do you want to talk about the Elliot by Heart Hero portable defibrillator?
So I thought this was interesting. It's only 1.3 pounds, but it's a portable defibrillator that like they said you can carry in your purse. And I thought this was interesting because like basically it's a truly portable defibrillator. And basically you just like it's basically just like a handle and you
Hmm.
just like carry it and like it starts your heart again. And I thought that like it basically made it so that you could go anywhere.
Mhm.
Um, and like it made it so that like people who have like pacemakers or like who have like heart trouble could take a defibrillator with them if they need somebody to start their heart if they have a heart attack.
That's monumental,
Yeah.
because truthfully beforehand, also, like, a lot of people who would need something like that would have to wait a significant well, a a small period of time to get access to a defibrillator, right? So, like, that I think that's super significant.
I just that's just like I just that to me it's just like I just because they're kind of like defibrillators of the past like it's like a whole battery pack that you have to like carry around and
Mhm.
like it's kind of bulky.
Yeah. So, Rogue Agent has to leave. Thank you for tuning in tonight, Rogue Agent. We really appreciate it and we adore you.
But
Harpy
like I don't know how much power like it would have, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know either. Granted, I mean, considering I'm not in the medical field, I don't know, like, the standard power that it would take to defibrillate someone's heart, right?
Hmm.
Thank you, Arby. I'm glad that you could relate to what I said in my other live stream. I was super out of it when I did that live stream.
You sounded so tired.
I was unbelievably exhausted. I was so exhausted.
It was such a good live stream though.
Oh, thank you. It was super spontaneous. I was like, why not? Why not? So another really interesting innovation that I found is there's been growing investigation and research being done to develop or plastic eating bacteria, which is a huge environmental and ecological leap forward, considering the degree of pollution that is in the ocean, the plastic,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So there has been a lot of like motivation to introduce some sort of bacteria that would, in a way, like take care of all of this excess pollution, this plastic pollution that there is in the ocean. Um, and this article that I found from Forbes says that these advances are timely and they are increasing. Um, and especially this is becoming important because we are vastly increasing our use of single-use plastics such as masks and takeaway boxes, right? So, like, there is a renowned interest in um, developing plant-eating organisms. Uh, Did I say plant eating? I meant plastic eating. I don't know why I
Plastic.
keep getting the word plant and plastic mixed up right now. But I thought that was really, really cool.
I switched to plastic again at the grocery store. They stopped accepting my reusable bags after a while. Um,
Oh.
so during the pandemic, at the beginning of the pandemic, they said that they wouldn't accept our reusable bags at the beginning of the pandemic. And so then we got back into the habit of using regular plastic bags, and we haven't gone back to using the reusable bags.
Mhm.
So we get all these plastic bags every time we do a grocery trip, and we have all of these plastic bags now.
Yeah, it's a
It's
cruel cycle.
it's so bad for the environment.
Leo, I just hope that bacteria doesn't mutate to eat other things. I agree.
Zombies.
Dun dun dun. Or what if it creates Godzilla or something? I'd be all in favor of that.
I don't know if there are lizards in the water that would mutate them to like 300 feet tall.
I don't know, it could be like a Shin Godzilla situation where it's like this amalgamation of things.
Biolante.
Yeah, Biolante, yes. Throw a rose in there. I love that movie. That is like seriously still one of my favorite Godzilla movies. But anyway, I digress. There's a lot of interesting scientific innovation depicted in Godzilla films, so we could do another episode talking about the scientific innovation of Godzilla films. We would really be nerding out for that one.
It's just like if they had plastic like eating like the gyrosphere, like oh man, like if they could clean up the oceans, just like how much better our world would be. Like
Right.
because like we're killing our oceans right now.
We are.
Like how many species are dying off because of us because we put plastic in the oceans?
And the scary thing is like it's not only plastic, like it's so many other things. And I mean, I keep like the thing that keeps coming to my mind is the Fukushima
Oil
power
spills.
plant that has released radioactive water and waste into the ocean.
And
Oil
this
spills, yeah.
mhm.
Like, and I keep getting unsettled over the fact that there is an oil pipeline in the Great Lakes running beneath, like, the two peninsulas, like, or the straits between the two peninsulas of Michigan in a fresh body of water, which sustains a lot of fresh water in this region. So it's like we are really on the edge of a dangerous situation with that, you know? So let's move on to our discussion question. So, um, I know, and I think we've kind of answered this already, but how would you argue that COVID-19, how the pandemic has empowered the significance of scientific innovation?
It basically empowered testing and it empowered uh just basically like a lot of the vaccine research. It empowered a lot of just um, just a lot of research over the past year. A lot of uh, just a lot of research and development over the last year has been COVID related, and I think that like this next year is going to be COVID related as well, or SARS related,
Mhm. Yeah,
just because they're going to keep developing it.
agreed. Because 'Cause they're gonna need to, like, expedite and stay ahead of, like, different variations and stuff like that. So, the next like, I think that's the perfect answer to that question, in my opinion. The next discussion question is, does the devaluing of education and professional credentials by a large swath of the population threaten scientific innovation? I would say to a certain degree, yes. Um, like, when you think about it, there's just so many people right now who are devaluing the actual fact that we're even in a pandemic, that mask wearing is effective, and that we've had people who have worked their entire lives in these respective fields who professionalize in the knowledge to tell us this. We're disregarding that and invalidating it with no basis, which is really unsettling. But then again, like that to me is a reflection of the past 4 years, right?
Mhm.
The past 4 years, there has been so much carefully crafted rhetoric. We may not see it, but there has been, right? Carefully crafted rhetoric that has meant to kind of, I don't know, put kindling underneath people's distrust of anything that might have any sort of establishment structure to it, anything that might have any sort of like power to it, right? Now, I think that it's possible to undo that, and I think that that again comes back to education. Like, if we educate people and have meaningful conversations, um, about biases and rhetoric and acknowledging that, we should listen to professionals who have spent their lives doing this. Like, I think that it's possible to undo that damage. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think it'll happen. What do you think, Ari?
I just think that like a lot of these scientific like discoveries and like scientific inventions that have come out, like they're from people who like have worked for years on these things and like I've spent time working on these devices and inventions. And so like I just think that like maybe we should give them a chance. Like I don't know. Like and like some of them are so complicated that like we don't even see them used in our pragmatic life. Like I saw a Scientific American article and they were basically stuff used in a lab, like all of the devices, and like the average person wouldn't even see all of the top 10 uh stuff that they were basically like things used in a lab for genetic coding and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, me, the average Joe, isn't going to see this scientific development used in everyday life because it's like this person developed this for genetic like whatever, and I'm not going to see this in my day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. So the last discussion question for our show tonight is: are there any other significant issues that our planet experiences that may benefit from or be resolved by scientific innovation?
We need to do something about climate change.
For
I
sure.
feel like we're not doing enough about climate change. I feel like we talk about it, and Greta Thunberg has talked about it, and other people have talked about it. I feel like we're in the Paris Climate Accord, yes, but we're not doing enough. I feel like we have these talks about doing stuff about the oceans, and we talk about cleaning up stuff. There was a meme that I saw that said it was an oh you know the meme where they go oh no at the end of it, where it's
Hmm.
like the person and they're like oh no.
Yeah.
Well, the meme went, it had a picture of somebody on television going, "You should do something to clean up the environment." And so it shows them with a brush and it's like a really dirty landscape and they're cleaning up with a brush and there's a little spot of green and they're like, "I'm doing my part to clean up the environment." And then that shows a corporation behind them dirty dumping a bunch of stuff into the landscape and they look up and they're like, "Oh no."
It's funny, but it's so truthfully sad at the same time.
And they're like just one little patch of green in this like landscape and there's like billowing piles of like oh no.
Like waste and garbage and stuff. Oh my gosh, that's so I like to me for me, I think that is the big one right now for sure. Honest.
So we need to do something about like all of the corporate like capitalist dumping and just pollution that's happening.
Right. Yeah. And we need to do so much about like the fear mongering that happens from a lot of people where they say that oh, all of the like nobody's going to have jobs, it's going to be overly expensive, it's going to put us so far in debt that we won't be able to function. Like I like to me like that's fear mongering without any sort of basis or backup. And that's a huge component of that. So,
Hmm.
but well, I think that pretty much covers it for this topic. What do you think?
Yeah.
Woo-hoo. All right, my friends. Well, we really appreciate you all tuning in tonight for episode 37. We love you and tune in for our next episode next Friday. Um, and we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your night and a lovely weekend. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.